Welcome students for online classes. Today we'll continue with the chapter 2 under statistics, that is the collection of data. In the earlier session we had studied about the sources of data, that is the primary source, secondary source and the pilot survey. So in this session we'll study about the census and sample survey. Now what are the census and sample survey? These are the modes of collection of data. In the earlier session we studied about the sources of data. Now we'll study about the modes, that is how can we collect the information or collection of information from the population or from the whole economy. Okay, there are two modes of collection of data. First is the census and second is of the sample survey. So let's know what is census. The meaning of census is the data collected by each and every unit of the universe or the population through census enumeration method is called as census. Okay, so what happens under census? A particular group of people will go to house in house and they will get to know about all the information about a particular family. Say for example, if I conduct a census enumeration, so what happens at this particular point of time? I will be going to many houses in the sense all the houses in our particular locality for a day, and I will ask them the necessary questions. So what will be the necessary questions? How many members are there in a family, what work do they do, what is the income, and what how many siblings do you have, how many children do that particular family has, and what does the children does, and all the necessary things, whether the children are married or not, all the things are been asked under census. So you might think why the census is carried on. Census is carried on to know the population, to what extent there is a population in our economy, and even to know about the income of the economy. By this we can estimate the national income of the economy, maybe to know to what extent there are poverty level people, whether the people are living below poverty line or the people are living above poverty line, whether they are poor, whether they are rich. To know all the necessary things, what happens, census is carried on. Census plays an important role in our economy, where a group of people will be splitted into many places, where census is carried on once in a 10 years. Okay, once in a 10 years, so it will be helpful for our economy to develop. Okay, to have a proper growth in the economy, whether there are proper facilities provided by the government, or whether there is any problematic things in our government provided to us, that is to the end customer. To know all these necessary things, census is carried on. And what happens under census, each and every element of the population is included in the investigation in the sense, while taking into consideration about the necessary information, all the necessary collection of data, when it is done at that particular point of time, what happens, this census, every element of the population is taken into consideration. Now let's see the features of census. So what happens under census, each and every individual will be covered under this census enumeration. So when you collect data, when the group of people or the officers, when they go and collect the data, what happens, they go to each and every area, each and every locality, each and every house, so that they get the proper information from each and every individuals. And what happens, they cannot select some of them and leave out others, in the sense, what happens, when in a particular locality, if there are 10 houses, the particular officers or the group of people cannot only decide that I'll go to only 5 houses and I'll leave out 5 houses. So it is very much important under census that each and every houses should be covered under the census enumeration. So next, what is it? It is, as told earlier, census in India, it is carried on once in every 10 years. So the recent census which was carried on or which was over, that was in the year 2011. Okay, so later what happens, each and every house, the officers will go and they collect or they inquire about all the necessary items or all the necessary information regarding their personal information and even about their professional information. And lastly, what happens, what kind of information are they going to collect? They collect, that is the officers collect the demographic data on the birth rate and death rates, maybe the literacy rate, maybe the workforce life expectancy. So what are these? Maybe when did maybe your birth dates, they'll take your birth dates, and even if any of your elderly person is been dead, even that particular person's death note, all the necessary things are being taken. And even they'll take the information about to what extent you have studied. If you have studied till 10th standard, they will even note down that, and they'll take why all these necessary, where will they take all these necessary information. All these necessary information will be published by the Registrar General of India. So if you want to make any kind of project, or if you want to do any kind of research, what happens, if you go and check the reports under the Registrar General of India website, what happens, you might get all the necessary information. If you have if you request for a proper mail, and if you request for the proper report, so with the help of this, what happens, it will be even helpful for the economy, for the development or the growthful process. So the next thing under the modes of collection of data is about the sample survey. So what happened under census, we had collected the whole information from the whole universe. Now when I talk into universe, I will take into consideration only India, okay, our nation, our particular country. So when I take into consideration census, what happened, when I be a census officer or an investigator, I go to each and every house in whole India and I take the information. But when I come to the sample survey, now what does this sample survey mean? It means that the data are collected about the samples or a group of items taken from the universe are called as sample survey. So what does sample survey means? I'll tell you in simple words. Only one particular locality or only one particular area is taken into consideration for the collection of data. For example, when I compare census and sample survey, what happens? Census, you take into consideration our whole India. But when I come to the sample survey, it can either be our own Karnataka, or it can be only our own place, maybe Kushalnagar, maybe Somarpet, maybe Madikeri. When you compare these places, no, what happens, only one particular locality, only one particular area, or only one particular state is taken into consideration for the collection of data. So by this, what happens, by this it is even the selection of data which is done is randomly. They will not think that I will go to only this particular place and collect data. They will think that which place is nearby to my particular area, so that I go there and collect the necessary information from that particular locality or from that particular area. By this, what happens, the selection of samples is being made. And even what happens under sample survey, where the detailed study of the entire population is not being done. Maybe when I go to a particular locality, I may make a estimation, or based on the approximation, what do? I write down the necessary information in my particular collection of data. So this is made under sample survey. So now there is a word sampling. Now what does this word sampling mean? Sampling is same as sample survey, where the process of selection of a sample out of a given population is known as sampling. So for example, as I told earlier, when I take into consideration only my locality, that is called as sampling, where only collection of data is made in one particular area for that particular area's report, that is known as sampling. So now what are the merits of sample survey? It is told that this particular sample survey is more scientific. More scientific in the sense where large number of people is not necessary. Large number of people in the sense, as told earlier under census, what had happened, each and every house to be inquired. But when I come to the sample survey, it is not necessary that you go to each and every house and ask about or investigate about the necessary information. It is also left out that some of the houses can be left out under sample survey. So it is even cheaper, as we take into consideration only some of the localities, and it is and it is less time consuming. Why? Because we take into consideration only one locality or one particular area. So because of that, what happens, only less percentage of the officers will be involved in the investigation process. And in the lastly, what happens, it will be successfully used for a large universe. Where what does this successfully usage of large universe mean? When you take into consideration about the large universe, or when you take into consideration about our whole India, sampling survey makes a better thing, or sampling survey helps in a better way by taking into consideration only small part. So by taking into consideration of a small part, we can estimate, or we can take a approximately of doing, or taking into consideration for the whole economy. So because of this, what happens, it is told that sampling survey or the sample survey is successful, which will be used for the larger universe. So the demerits under sample survey are, so the first and the foremost demerit under sampling survey are, it is the sampling error. So what does this sampling error mean? This is the difference between the census result and the sample result under the same circumstances. For example, I will be conducting the census in the same point of time. At the same time, what will I do? I will do the sampling survey. So at this particular point of time, what happens, there will be a major difference. So what did I tell you earlier, that under census I will go to each and every house for the enquirement process. But when I come to the sampling survey, it is not necessary that each and every house to be conducted regarding the investigation. So at this particular point of time, there will be a slight difference between the census result and the sampling result. So this is the error or the demerit under the sample survey. So which is very much difficult, or how will this sample survey will be 100% deducted? It can be deducted by increasing the sample survey area result. So how will the sample survey area result be increased? Now when I compare to census, what do? We take into consideration our whole India. But when I come to the sample survey, what happened, we had taken only one locality. So in comparison, there was a result, and there was a proper difference between two results. So that is known as sampling error. So what happens when I come to the sampling survey? When I increase my locality, so in the earlier process, if I had taken only one locality, so when I increase to 2, 3, 4, 5, when there will be increase in the sample survey, there will be a 0% demerit, or there will be a 0% error under the sampling process. So this is known as the sampling error. So what happens under sampling error? It is not suitable for the small universe. So why it is not suitable for small universe? It is not suitable for small universe just because there will be increase in the error process. Because of this, it is not suitable for the small universe, and it may not be perfectly correct. What happens when you will not go for the inquirement process for all the houses? So at this particular point of time, there will be no proper investigation made, so which will be very difficult for you to make a proper estimation regarding, maybe when you come to income, maybe the literacy rate, maybe the workforce. It will be very difficult for you for the estimation process. So this is also one of the demerit under sample survey. And lastly, what happens, it will lead to the wrong sample, which will also lead to the wrong analysis and conclusions. So for example, when I go for the investigation for one house, at that particular point of time, when the person will not be there in that house, so I shift my intention to go by going to another house. So at this particular point of time, I have left out one house. So under census, what do? Even if they are not there, we'll take into inquiry when we go to the next day. So it will be very difficult for the people to take out into consideration or to make any proper estimation when you go to the Registrar General of India. And even regarding the reports, what happens, it will be very difficult for you to get the proper reports when you compare to census and the sample survey. So it is told that census plays an important role, and it plays a majorly role when you take into consideration about the reports and any kinds of results. So the differences between the census and sample survey. So what is the meaning of census? It is first comes the meaning. So the under census, data collected from the whole universe. So what happens under census? We collect the data from the whole universe, but when comes under sample survey, data is collected only in the samples, that we go to any particular locality, we go to any particular area, and we collect the samples. So the second one is, it is suitable for small universe under census. Why it is suitable for small universe? Because it is very time consuming. Major number of labors are being should be involved in all this process. So it will be suitable for small universe. But when I compare to the sample survey, what happens? It will be suitable for the large universe, because we take a approximity. We will not go to the necessary homes and we take the necessary information. So it is easier for taking into consideration for the larger universe. And next is the census, which requires more money and time, where the people, the officers need to, the investigator need to travel from their particular area to the place where investigation is to be made, and the time will be very much consumed if the people are not available in their home, so they need to go again and again for that particular place. So it is very time consuming. But when I compared it to the sample survey, it requires less money and time. Why less money and time? Just because the officers or the investigator is free to go to any particular place or locality and take the necessary information. So if I am the officer, so what will I do? I go to my nearby place, I collect the necessary information and I come back. So it requires less money and even less time, which why? Because it will be the nearby places where I conduct the investigation. And lastly, what happens under census? There will be no bias under the collection of data. Why there will be no bias? Because each and every people will be giving their necessary information, so there will be no bias. But when I come to the sample survey, what do? I go to a particular place where the people nearby are very familiar to me. At this particular point of time, what can I do? I can even call them and ask for the necessary information. By this, what happens? There will be a biased information which will be collected during the collection process. So these are the differences between the census and the sample survey. So the assignment part: mention the two modes of collection of data. Write the note on census. What is sample survey? Give the meaning of sampling error. What is the difference between census and sample survey? Thank you, students.